Joanne Corelli and Michael Cimino had a lot of people coming through for all these small parts. They needed a band in the film, and rather than having actors learning how to pantomime to a pre-record, they wanted musicians who would actually play. I probably went down there with my old friend T-Bone Burnett. We were in a band at the time. We ended up being hired to be these musicians on camera. Everybody that was in any frame of that film was there for the entire time. Some bit character might be in the background while a lead actor is in the foreground, so you always see everybody in the community constantly become familiar with them over the course of the picture.
He come to me and my wife, and he using very bad word before wife.
Whenever there was an actor, they always tried to find out what other skills they had that might be useful in the film. Okay, do you speak any other languages? Do you roller skate? So I probably let them know that I was comfortable on skates. I practiced those steps and then putting the fiddle on top of it by the time we got to doing it on camera. It was all kind of second nature by then. I'd grown up playing classical violin, but also playing rock and folk and blues on other stringed instruments. Then there were other instruments that I could learn to play with little or no effort, like mandolin, which is a violin with frets on it that you play like a guitar. And once I started figuring that stuff out in my early adolescence, I just started fooling around with other stringed instruments I can get my hands on. When I came up to the set in Montana, I think I might have still been like 22 or something. And even though I was really young, I really had already had quite a career for half a dozen years before that, you know, being in bands. The year before that, I'd been touring with Bob Dylan. I think that's how Joanne Corelli first sort of noticed me and thought to give me a call when it was time to cast this thing. The Heaven's Gate score was actually kind of just like, you know, me in a toy store in a play shop. I mean, I was in a little studio on Santa Monica Boulevard with an engineer named Larry Hirsch who had recorded all the Alpha Band records. We had a long history going back, and just me and him with a bunch of cases and instruments, one thing at a time, putting it together, and it was heaven. Big vistas, these incredible cinematic moments with this intimate music. Even when the music sounds big, I'm often playing the instruments very quietly close to a mic, so it's sort of like somebody whispering in your ear more than yelling. I think what prompted a kind of palette for the score, the choice of instrumentation and stuff like that, more than anything, it was these folk songs up in Montana. Then thinking, you know, how do I, with what I do, sort of reproduce the feeling of those songs most effectively and most emotionally? Having this intimate folk music score that's very Eastern European. You know, I gravitated towards the mandolin because it feels like it could be a balalaika. Then sort of the big instrument like the mandocello, which is basically a mandolin that's tuned like a cello and about as large as a cello, that it just had such an archaic sound to it that it just screams like, you know, late 19th century. The two pieces that the band was sort of really responsible for were the roller skating scene with everybody, and then this second scene with Kris and Isabelle, to this waltz. The band was a real band, incredible players. The late Stephen Bruton on guitar, Sean Hopper from Huey Lewis and the News on bass, Jerry McGee on accordion, the late Norton Buffalo, a Bay Area legend on harmonica, and T-Bone on drums. Michael and Joanne had come up with this two-step that was going to be the theme for the skating scene. It was a Doug Kershaw Cajun tune, and our job was to sort of come up with a little 5 or 6 piece arrangement of it that we could play live. The Heaven's Gate Waltz is the melody, the outline of it is basically an adaptation of that other tune. Slowed it down, turned it into a waltz, altered the melody a little bit, just sort of adapted it. My father's Eastern European, he's a violinist. The feeling that I had in a lot of these cues was of the music that was sort of under my skin from growing up. In fact, when the score finally came out and my father heard the opening title music or something, he sort of said, "Gee, I never knew you had this in you."